This is the part everything has been leading up to. The Architecture Development Method, or ADM. It sits right at the center of TOGAF, and it's the single biggest reason the framework took off. To feel why, picture the difference between a paper map and a sat-nav. A paper map is packed with detail, every road, every town. But it never tells you what to actually do. You're left to work out the route yourself. A lot of older architecture frameworks are exactly like that, rich in content but silent on method. The ADM is the sat-nav. It doesn't just show you the landscape, it guides you step by step from where you are now to where you want to be. That guidance, the how, is what made TOGAF win. Now here's the most important thing to notice. The ADM is drawn as a circle, not a straight line. Older versions had arrows marching one way around it, and everyone read it like a waterfall. Do step 1, then 2, then 3, and never look back. So they took the arrows away. Because real architecture isn't a one-way march. Like a good sat-nav, the ADM constantly recalculates. You loop back, revisit, and refine as the world shifts around you. It's built to be iterative. And sitting right in the middle of that circle is the one thing that touches everything else: requirements management. Think of it as your destination, pinned at the very center of the map. Every phase checks against it, and every phase feeds back into it. Whatever you're doing, you're always asking the same question. Does this still serve what we actually need? So what are the stops along the way? The journey starts before you even leave the driveway with a preliminary phase, getting the team and the ground rules ready. Then the cycle proper begins. Phase A sets the vision. Where are we going and why? Phases B, C, and D define the detail. First the business, then the data and applications, then the technology underneath. Phases E and F handle the planning, spotting the opportunities, then mapping out how to actually get there. And phases G and H are the governance, steering the build and managing change once you're on the road. Vision, definition, planning, governance. 4 simple stages, 8 lettered phases, all looping around a single destination. So that's the ADM in one breath. Not a static map, but a living, looping method that carries an organization from today to its target, always checking against what it truly needs. It's the engine that turns all those foundations into real, governed change. But an engine like this only runs smoothly if everyone first agrees on one simple thing: when a piece of work is still a rough draft and when it has been properly approved. Every document the ADM produces lives in one of 2 simple states, and it really is just 2. While a document is still being worked on, before anyone has formally reviewed it or signed it off, it's a draft. Picture an essay covered in pencil marks and crossings out. Useful, taking shape, but nobody is promising it's right just yet. Once it has been properly reviewed and signed off, following whatever approval rules your organization uses, it becomes approved. That's the version people can trust and act on. The pen has replaced the pencil. Most teams just map this onto numbering they already have. A draft at 0.1, an approved version at 1.0, ticking upward as things change. But here's the part that trips people up. Approved does not mean finished, frozen, never to be touched again. Even an approved document can be reopened and updated later, exactly like a popular book getting a second edition. And that isn't a flaw. It's the whole point of how this method works. Because the ADM is iterative. You are meant to travel around it more than once, revisiting and refining as you learn. And that looping happens at 3 different sizes. Sometimes you rework one small thing inside a single phase, like polishing a paragraph. Sometimes a discovery sends you back a step, the way changing a later chapter forces you to fix an earlier one. And sometimes you run a whole fresh lap of the entire cycle, like releasing a brand new edition. Now here's the clever part. Every time you begin a new lap, you don't just blindly repeat. You make a few deliberate choices up front. How much of the organization are we covering this time? That's the breadth. How much detail are we going into? That's the depth. How far into the future are we planning, and in how many steps along the way? And what can we simply reuse from work we've already done, instead of starting from a blank page? Same method, retuned for each pass. So the ADM isn't a one-and-done march. It's a loop you travel deliberately, again and again, each pass sharper than the last. Which raises an obvious worry. If you can keep looping and even reopen work that's already approved, what stops the whole thing spiraling into chaos? Something has to keep it controlled and on track. So what stops all that looping from spiraling into chaos? One word: governance. And governance is simply control. Making sure the work gets done properly by the right people to the rules everyone agreed on. The trick is the right amount of control, enough that everybody sticks to the agreed principles and standards, but not so much that you spend more time filling in forms than actually doing the work. At its heart, it just answers three plain questions: who's responsible, who's involved, and who's accountable. Now picture a road safety inspector watching over the whole journey. In TOGAF, that's the architecture board. They can pull you over at any point in any phase and check the important things. Are you following the method? Are you sticking to the agreed principles? Are you actually producing what you promised? They give the formal thumbs up that approves an architecture, and they flag anything drifting off course early so it can be steered back. And notice what they're inspecting. Not just the finished building, but the method itself. The board wants to be sure the ADM is being followed properly across every phase, because if the process is sound, the results will be too. These regular check-ins are called compliance reviews, and they catch mistakes while they're still cheap to fix, and keep every project lined up with the bigger picture. To keep it all fair, there's usually a simple written agreement between the people doing the work and the people paying for it, spelling out exactly what will be delivered and to what quality. TOGAF calls it an architecture contract. It's really just a shared promise everyone can be held to, so nobody argues later about what finished was supposed to mean. So there's the whole engine room in one picture. The ADM is the looping method that carries an organization from where it is today to where it wants to be. Iteration lets it get sharper with every pass. And governance, the guardrails and the inspector, is what keeps all that motion safe, controlled, and pointed at what the business genuinely needs. Method, motion, and control, working as one. That's the real heart of how TOGAF turns a plan on paper into change you can trust. And from here, the real journey begins, walking those phases one by one.